Welcome to After the Pull, the video series where I take the rest of the comic books that I read for the comic book week, share my thoughts and opinions with all of you guys, except for those newest issue 1 comic books. If you want to see that series, that takes place every Thursday, and it covers those new number 1 issues, like I said. I'm Mike Spider Slayer. Welcome back to Comic Book Corner 2.0. If you love daily comic book content, if you like me helping you make decisions on what comic books to buy, you came to the right place. Hit that subscribe button. Guys, we got quite a few comics to talk about, so without wasting any more time, let's get started with this week's episode of After the Pull. And the first book we're talking about today is Uncanny X-Men. This is issue 11. The legacy numbering on that bad boy is 711 with 32 pages for the price of $5. Written by Gail Simone. The art is done by Javier Garron. The artwork it definitely suffers, especially when you're not used to having the regular artist on the book, which is Dave Marquez, and it's just not great. In some scenes it's okay, but in other scenes it just seems off. There's a couple of scenes in here with Wolverine who just looks overly stocky and big, and then you get Rogue with some weird facial expressions. You got Gambit, who's got some like weird looking hair in there. So the artwork just wasn't my favorite in this issue. And we got quite a few different plot points going on. We got Gambit and Rogue dealing with these kids, and then of them taking their training too lightly and trying to make things a little bit more serious. We got some crazy, like, I don't know, some PTSD insane soldier that works from Grand Malcolm that's seeing people as sentinels, and other people are coming down with the flu and maybe suffering from the same thing. We got the main storyline going on with Professor Xavier in here, as you find out that he has a brain tumor and could possibly die, and he escapes from the prison. So there's just a lot of different plot points here, and take it from what it's worth with this comic book, there's a lot to cover, right? But the main thing is Professor Xavier. He's the one that's trying to escape, and in this issue you feel like that he's definitely not himself. He doesn't see the X-Men as he usually would see them, and then he escapes from this prison, and then it kind of leaves you with this cliffhanger. Now, at the end of the day, I think this book was okay. It set up a decent plot point. I thought the beginning of the series of this book was kind of just a little bit boring and just dealing with these kids. But then when it dealt with the more of the mainstream X-Men, I seemed to like the overall plot and the tone of this, X-Manhunt, right? So at the end of the day, it did provide itself a little bit better of a story. I wish it did have better artwork. So I'm gonna wind up giving this one a C+. Not the best, but not the worst either. At the NYX, this is issue 9 for 28 pages, $4. This is part 2 of the X-Manhunt. This one is written by Colin Kelly and Jackson Lansing, and the art is done by Francisco Mortarino. The artwork is fine. It's, again, nothing spectacular or amazing or groundbreaking. It's simple layouts, simple paneling in here. You do get this like 1-page pin-up page with like Mogo, and I think Mogo has been in this story quite a bit, and this book is getting ready to wrap up at issue 10, so somehow they have to continue the current storyline to wrap everything out and deal with this X-Manhunt. Now, this story just seemed completely off the wall compared to what we got in issue 1. Issue 1 presents itself with a decent plot by the time you wind up getting to the end of it, or I should say part 1, with Professor Xavier having this brain tumor that's going to kill him, and you find out that he escapes because he wants to rescue his daughter, right? And he's gonna kind of do anything that he possibly can to do that. Well, in this issue, he winds up using the NYX team, like Miss Marvel and Enola and everybody else, saying that there's this one Krakoan seed that's left, and Lord Doom is the one that has possession, and we need to go find it. But really what Professor Xavier wanted to do was find something else that's going to, benefit him in the future, one step closer to achieving his goal here. So he betrays the people that are close to him, supposedly, right? So he's kind of an asshole. And then at the end of the day, it all connects to freaking Mojo anyway. This book definitely had a different tone to it. I didn't really like it. Obviously, I guess probably what Colin Kelly and Jackson Lansing were trying to do was incorporate both stories, and maybe that's not the best. And I don't know if this was a favorite series for people, but this one just wasn't the best for me. So at the end of the day, this one wound up getting a D+. It was close to getting that C- range, but once Mojo wound up becoming the overall arcing villain in this whole thing, I was like, that's kind of lame. Storm, this is issue 6, legacy numbering 17, 28 pages for the price of $4. The artwork in this series is pretty good. We get this cool like thundercloud like city that I guess Storm travels in, which I wasn't familiar with, and in this one we get to see Charles Xavier go from like all his X-Men. He goes from like the regular X-Men as he's escaping, he goes to NYX guys, now he goes to Storm, and he's trying to seek obviously shelter here, hide from everybody else, trying to give Storm a particular story of I tried to escape, and they're inhumane at the Gray Malcolm prison, and Storm is now Eternity's like herald here. So she's definitely not dumb. She's never been a dumb X character to begin with. She's very smart, and she wasn't taking Xavier's bullshit, and she kind of tries to find out. She's like, okay, why are you really here? And just as Charles Xavier gives that story to her, we wind up seeing the X-Men, Jed McKay's X-Men, wind up coming into play. Storm actually protects Xavier in this part of the chapter, and they all fight with each other. And what this book does is it really showcases the power that currently Storm has. I mean, obviously she is so OP, she can defeat any X-Men in this here, and she kicks freaking Cyclops' ass in this comic book, and it was good. It just really displays that power, if anything, here, and she was really willing to protect Professor Xavier. Now, I don't know if Jed McKay's X-Men makes sense to show up here. Maybe it does because it continues from there on out. But it's kind of like we just left like the other X-Men behind, right? Like Rogue and Gambit. Now, the one issue that I have with this comic book and the previous one is Professor Xavier shows no real ill effects from his brain tumor that he currently has. You think that you see that in that very first part as he's not himself. I get that he was drugged and all those other things, but that brain tumor is going to cause these crazy side effects, and you just kind of don't see that. He seems his normal self, right? But if you look at this as not like an X event, and you look at this as a Storm book, this is a great book to showcase that beautiful artwork and that amazing powers that she currently has. Out of the 3 parts of this, I like this one the best. It was the most entertaining. It gets the point across, and I gave this one a A-. I really enjoyed this one. Spider-Boy, this is issue 17. This is a great book for all ages. And I like the Spider-Boy character. I like how Dan Slott has been doing some great things with this one. The artwork in this book is also done by Nathan Stockman, so it's really pretty good. I think Paco Mandina did it before, which I like better, but it's okay. It looks pretty good. Just a recap on this, it's a $5 comic book, but it's really fun to look at. It's bright, vibrant colors, and in this issue, you wind up getting to see Spider-Boy versus Boy Spider, which is pretty much a clone that was created of him back in the very first story arc. And Boy Spider wanted nothing more but to be with Bailey Briggs' mom, because she took care of him in those early issues, and so he posed as Bailey Briggs, right? And when Bailey Briggs gets back from the tournament that he was fighting in the last story arc, well, now they wind up living together. They are both the sons of Bailey Briggs' mom here, and they have this rivalry with each other, which is very hysterical. And then there's this event that happens at the Feast Center that brings them together to fight for the common enemy, right? And we get introduced to these cool new villains. They're called like Bada Bing and Bada Boom, and you form them together and they create this big like what is it called? The Dragon Ball Fireball and the freaking Ayukin from freaking Street Fighter and shit like that. And it's just fun, dude. It's just a fun issue. I definitely would recommend this book. Every time I think, oh, it's going to fall off, it just never does. And I think this is one of Dan Slott's better books, because even though it is a Spider-Man adjacent book, this character has his own identity. So at the end of the day, I'm giving this one a B. I really like it. If you're looking for a younger audience book or all ages book to read to your kids, this is where it's at, guys. Moon Knight, Fist of Khonshu. This is issue 6, legacy numbering 246. 28 pages, $4 for this comic book. This one is written by Jed McKay. The art is done by Domenico Carbone, which I think is a different artist. The art's not as clean. There's a lot of inks, but there is good facial expressions in here. I like Tigra as a supporting cast member. I like 8-Ball as a supporting cast character. And just, the art is good though. Like, don't get me wrong. It's really good. It's been better though, right? And in this issue, you wind up kind of seeing the end result of what happens with our new villain here, whose name Achilles Fairchild, and you find out his history and kind of like where he comes from in this book. And he's a pretty powerful character, right? And we get to see Moon Knight kind of dealing with his demons in here. He's like in a coma and stuff like that. And we wind up seeing the supporting cast members in this book try to rescue him, right? And we just realize how tight-knit this group actually is as a whole, as we kind of get, I guess, introduced probably to the next story arc going forward. Here's Moon Knight right here without all his gear on and trying to recover from all his injuries. So I definitely really liked this book, and not as strong as previous issues. So I'm going to give this one a B. I definitely have read better issues. I just felt like the fight between the main character and Moon Knight was a great build-up, but the fight just ended too quickly and we didn't see enough of it. I would have loved to seen some great, like, I don't know, panels of like Fairchild just punishing Moon Knight, and maybe Moon Knight getting the upper hand at times and thinking that he wins, and you just did not see enough of that, right? And he recovers all within an issue. So I don't know, man. It was still good. I like it. I just wish the fighting was a little bit more. But Moon Knight overall is a really fun series. Wolverine issue 7, legacy numbering 399, 32 pages for the price of $5. Written by Saladin Ahmed. The art is done by Martin Coculio. The artwork is good. And I like how in this issue, there's no Wendigo. We get to see just an all-out brawl between all of the characters, with Logan and the character Romulus, and we wind up seeing Constrictor and Cyber and just everybody, Lady Deathstrike, and we kind of get the story of what's going on with this gold stuff. And we wind up seeing that Romulus is like the one that's in control of everybody. It's kind of like, it's like, oh, they're all the other people, like I would say Constrictor and Cyber and Lady Deathstrike all had the gold adamantium, right? And then he's gathering all of their power to make this the dominant force, right? And just, he's basically fighting and talking the whole time, and that's what you get to see out of this issue. It was definitely entertaining. I enjoyed it. I mean, that's what you can expect out of a Wolverine comic book, is all-out brawl action and fun. And you just get to see all these different, like, obviously claws, how they're coming out and all this stuff. And so, yeah, I had a good time of it. It wasn't the best issue in the world, no. But it's still a fun story, especially since you like action. I would like another story arc, though, going forward. I hope this is not drawn out too much further. I'm going to give this one a B. A decent read this week, and I think it's great that we didn't see that window go, kid, because Wolverine can get down to business. Our final Marvel book of the day goes to the Ultimates. This is issue 10. 32 pages for the price of $5, written by Denise Camp. The art is done by Juan Frigeri. If you've read this series from the very start, you can expect good artwork. I don't think maybe all the time it might be the best artwork, but it is definitely solid. And in this book, we wind up getting to see our team go out on a mission, and it consisted of like Human Torch, Captain America, Wasp, Ant-Man, Hawkeye, and they had to infiltrate, I guess, this version of like the Red Skull and his troops, which is like the Nazis, right? I guess it's like the Punisher's logo represents the Nazis, and the Red Skull is known as the Grand Skull in this book, and it's connected to the Hand, which if you've read previous issues, the Hand is connected to the Maker, which it all comes around. And you wind up finding out what's going on with Iron Lad as well, if he's recovered from his injuries, and we wind up getting to see Captain America and everybody try to retrieve Namor, as he's been used as a trophy and he's no longer alive. So the infiltration of this base was quite interesting because you come across different characters that you're kind of like, oh my god, I can't believe like this is a character in this world, right? And there's one character, right, that I thought was kind of cool, which was US Agent, which was in here. And then you also get the reveal of who the Grand Skull actually is in this book. And I totally didn't see it coming. I don't know why, I just didn't. And when I saw that, it was like almost like heart-wrenching. I was like, oh, that sucks, right? And that really upped the ante for me for this particular issue, and I really enjoyed it. This was my favorite Marvel issue of the week, a top pick for me. This one gets an A+. If you've liked the Ultimates, you're gonna like this book. There's some people that don't like this book, and that's totally okay if you don't like it. You're entitled to your opinion, but I'm loving this thing, and I can't wait to read the next issue. Batman Full Moon. This is issue 4, 32 pages for the price of $6. You get a glow-in-the-dark cover. Don't forget that one. This book is written by Rodney Barnes, and the art is done by Stefan Sobek. The artwork always hasn't been my favorite. I mean, it's creepy. It's got that dark tone vibe to it. It kind of fits what they're trying to go for, but it's a little too muddy. Maybe like it almost seems like a watercolor. Can't always make out the characters' faces. And it's just like, I would love to see a detailed page of what this werewolf would actually look like. And it's just kind of frustrating when you see that, because I feel like this book had a lot more potential. And it just wraps up very quickly, right? We wind up getting to see the two fights, and it's just a very convenient ending because, one, we wind up finding out a cure, and two, we wind up finding out that there was a way to kill the other werewolf to begin with. And when you kill the other werewolf, the person that gets infected gets cured. And it just happened to all work out very nice at the end of the day. What I would have loved to see is I would have loved to see Batman actually kill, or not kill, but maybe wind up stuck with this curse and being left on his own maybe forever and dealing with this curse. Because it doesn't matter. It's an Elseworld story. Why does it have to have a happy ending? It shouldn't. It should be cursed. He was like, there was one saying in here where he was like, oh, maybe I was meant to always kill. And that's true. And maybe that's the way the book should have ended. So I was a little bit frustrated by the ending, how we had to have that happy ending, right? So at the end of the day, I'm just going to give this one a C. It was fine ending, but very predictable that it would have that happy-go-lucky story that was like, oh yeah, everything's perfect, It's a Black Label book. Let's end with an edge. Poison Ivy, this is issue 31, 28 pages for the price of $4. This book is written by G. Willow Wilson, who's done a bang-up job for this series, and the art is done by Brian Level. The artwork is pretty good. It's a different artist. It's not the same, but it does do a great job at trying to, I would say, emulate it. At least I think it's a different artist. I mean, it does look the same, but the characters kind of are drawn different in my eyes in the very beginning, but it's fine. And The one thing, though, is that you should be prepared to read when you read this comic, because there's a lot of backstory that goes into this book, learning about the city, the Marshview city. And I wanted to know where this city actually came from. There's a lot of history behind it. And this all has to do with the gray and the green possibly going at war with each other, right? And so Poison Ivy, she meets up with Peter Undine, who's like this flower creature, and talks with the dead in this former city, and they found out the entire history on why this city was built and how this world was basically alive, and they wouldn't allow the humans to build, and then eventually the humans prevailed and they wound up building the city, and then it took it over again. But there's some bad things that are happening because the city is still wounded, and there's just a lot of crazy things. And then there's this one guy that stayed with this city this entire time, and he's the guardian of this city, and it looks like he's going after like Poison Ivy at the end. Dude, it's absolutely insane. I really loved it. I enjoy this book. I am so sad I never kept up with this book from the very start. Like I said, G. Willow Wilson is hitting it out of the park. I gave this one an A. It's basically a history lesson, and if you don't like that type of storytelling, you might be bored. It's just about a city, but for some reason, I was intrigued by this whole thing. But Poison Ivy is a very well-written series with some solid artwork. I've stuck with this series, Batgirl. This is issue 5, 28 pages for the price of $4. This one's written by Tate Brumble, and the art is done by Takashi Mazawa. The artwork is fine. It's definitely have grown on me as I've continued to read this series. I was very much, skeptical about actually dropping this series. I've always been on the fence about it because it's been very repetitive in issues past, but finally I felt like this was the breakthrough issue that I was waiting for, because we get to see Cassandra Cain going through these struggles with her mom. Should I trust my mom? Should I not trust my mom? And in this book, she winds up getting knocked out, and she gets into this dream state, and she comes face to face with a spoiler, which I thought was actually really good, which is Stephanie Brown, right? And they share some moments with each other, and we're all as the reader, it's known that this is a dream, and it's even taught to Cassandra Cain that it is a dream as well, but she's having this like epiphany moment, right, on what to do, and I thought it was very emotional, and it was very heartfelt, and finally I felt something with this book. I finally feel like, okay, now we're finally getting somewhere with her mom, and she's making that decision, and she's fighting within herself and the people that are closest with her, and I really enjoyed this one. So finally, Batgirl delivers for me. It was a quick read, though. That's kind of the downfall for this particular issue. In the beginning, it was like half the issue was pretty much almost like silent, which I would think you expect that in a Batgirl because she doesn't talk all that much, but still really a lot of fun. So I'm going to give this one a B. Best issue so far yet. Arcbound. This is issue 4, 32 pages for the price of $5, written by Tom Hardy and Scott Snyder, and the art is done by Ryan Smallman. The artwork is fine. There's a lot of bright and vibrant colors, purples, greens, right? And this issue is like reading freaking Star Wars, dude. It's like, seriously, the characters here are the rebels, and they basically have to go after these plans, and they basically have to go into this like starship and do what it is that they need to do in order to win the day. I mean, even the ships look like Star Destroyers. I was like, what the hell is happening? And they got to go on this moon base and all this other stuff. And it just was very reminiscent of Star Wars. So I guess if you like Star Wars, you're going to like this one. This obviously, I wouldn't say this is any breakthrough series or maybe my favorite series, but it's been a fun sci-fi read from Scott Snyder. And I'll be curious to see, how this whole thing finishes up or concludes, but it didn't like blow my mind this time around. So I'm probably getting a little bit bored by it, and so I wound up giving this one a C. Do you guys agree or disagree? Let me know in the comments below. Thundercats, this is issue 13. This one is a $5 comic book. This one's written by Declan Shavely, and Drew Moss does the art in this book. This is a Snarf-centric book, and the thing about when you have Snarf in here, there's not going to be a lot of dialogue. So this book actually takes you 2 minutes to read the whole thing, and you kind of wind up seeing like Snarf's purpose, right? And he winds up going and traveling through this door, and he winds up meeting all the other Snarfs. And yeah, I mean, that's kind of it. I mean, this wasn't my favorite issue in here. You do wind up getting to see like battles at hand in the future. You wind up getting to see the future of like the other Lion-O that we saw in that one shot. You wind up still seeing Lion-O in the sarcophagus. Yeah, I mean, it was all right. It was nothing spectacular. I was definitely not expecting that. I definitely feel like when it comes to Thundercats, it's a slow burn. I recently jumped back on board. I'm glad they finally touched on that one shot, but this wasn't anything that really got me excited. So we're going to see where it goes. I'm going to give this one a C. Not that much to talk about here. Nothing that really excited me this time around. Hyde Street, this is issue 4, 32 pages for the price of $4, written by Jeff Johns, and the art is done by Ivan Reis. The art is really well done in this comic book. I love this story as well as we learn about this guy that was from 1949 when it was the height of all the monster movies. He was this actor, and the only role he could play was Frankenstein's monster. Not even Frankenstein's monster, to be exact. It was actually his brother, right? And seeing the downward spiral of this poor actor was just absolutely insane. I was so intrigued. But what this character becomes is he becomes one of the scorekeepers, I guess, monsters to collect souls, and whoever wins winds up getting their freedom here. And again, what I always express in a comic book is great facial features here, and you can see the agony and the pain, the horror that someone is going through when drawn correctly, right? And it's even mentioned in this comic book where this actor, he sits there and goes, I want to play one of these roles that showcases my face and that they can see me for what I am. And one of his agents winds up saying, it's all in the eyes. It's all in the eyes. And you see this with every single character in this comic book. And that's what makes this comic book so well done, right? And again, the downward spiral of this character was amazing on how he became the creature that he is today in signing the contract from the scorekeeper, and it just adds more to this Hyde Street universe. I can't wait to see maybe more of these characters and this competition. It was very dark and gruesome. Definitely would recommend Hyde Street at any day of the week. This is an A book for me. I absolutely loved it. Almost near perfect, but not quite, because there was just one other book that just made the grade this week and just always gives you a really good emotional impact. We're going to talk about that one next. And the final book that we're talking about today, before we do those final grade averages, goes to Space Ghost. This is issue 10, and this one is 32 pages for the price of $5. This one's written by David Pepose, and the art is done by Jonathan Lau. And there's not an issue where this book does not deliver on the storytelling and the artwork. It is absolutely spectacular. And we wind up seeing this other version of Space Ghost in this book. And he is called, I think, the Space Spectre. And he looks just like Space Ghost in here. And you're like, whoa, who is this character? Where does he come from? And when you read this, he obviously comes from a different time. And it's revealed to Space Ghost on who this character is. And Space Ghost cannot imagine, he can't believe who it actually is. And this person is kind of evil, man. And there's this mission that takes place where there's only so much time before this particular rocket goes off and can destroy millions of people. And at the end of the day, when you find out who this character is, it's almost like the Ultimates. You're kind of just like, oh my gosh, like, again, your heart just drops, and it comes to that emotion that drives you to love this book so much, right? And that's what I felt in the Ultimates. That's what I felt in this book. In fact, that's what I felt in the last issue of this comic. It's just so well done and so well written. You got 10 issues of this book, and it has not disappointed, just like Transformers. I mean, it's just so good. By far, Dynamite's best title. It's an A+, top pick for me. Dynamite should actually take note of this book and just... They really got to strive to make every book look like this one and the storytelling like this one. I know it's hard, but I tell you, it would probably be a much better, stronger company if every book was written like freaking Space Ghost here, man. God dang, this book is so good. So which company won this week? Well, let's find out right now. So just to recap, with Marvel, we had The Ultimates, issue 10 got an A+. Wolverine, issue 7, received a B. Moon Knight, Fist of Khonshu, issue 6, wound up getting a B. Spider-Boy, issue 17, received a B. Uncanny X-Men, issue 11, got a C+. NYX, issue 9, was down in the dumps and received a D+. While Storm, issue 6, got an A-. So with the most comic books out of all three companies this week was 7, Marvel finished with a 2.9 average. Not bad for Marvel. DC Comics had only 3 comic books this week, and they finished with Batgirl, issue 5, got a B. Batman Full Moon, issue 4, received a C. Poison Ivy, issue 31, received an A. With only 3 comics, like I said, they got a 3.0 average. The indie comics, we had 4 comics this week. Starting off with Space Ghost issue 10 had an A+. Hyde Street issue 4 had an A. Arcbound issue 4 received a C, while Thundercats issue 13 also got a C, which came to a 3.0 averaged, and the indie and DC tied, while Marvel, unfortunately, just lost by a 0.1%. So there you guys have it. There are the winners and the losers of the week. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments below. And as always, guys, I'm going to leave you more content right here for you to click on. Remember, support the local comic shops. Keep buying, keep collecting, but always read your comics so we can have great comic conversation. Guys, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you real soon. Bye.